All right, Matt, what do we got going on today?
So today on the Mighty Peculiar, we are going to talk the Hat Man, and we're going to talk about some scams, and or as I'm liking to call it, Hat Man and Robin.
Okay. Well, you know what? Before you get started on that, we have a special presentation of Mighty Peculiar Masterpiece Theater.
Hello, my friends. I hope you too are sitting beside a roaring fire with your favorite robe, sipping a Glencairn or a tumbler or a glass of your favorite adult beverage. Tonight it's an Irish whiskey. Cheers. We have a special nighttime and bedtime reading of the Mark Meadows text. Specifically, we're going to concentrate on Mike Lee. So let's go right into a bedtime reading of the Mike Lee text. I'm not going to do them all. I'm going to do a few select in preparation for reading them all tomorrow or even tonight by this roaring fire. So let's begin, shall we, on November 7th, 2020, 4 days after the election. Please give this to the President. Dear Mr. President, we, the undersigned, offer our unequivocal support for you to exhaust every legal and constitutional remedy at your disposal to restore Americans' faith in our elections. This fight is about much more than just this election. This fight is about the fundamental fairness and integrity of our election system. The nation is depending on your continued resolve. Stay strong and keep fighting, Mr. President. Sincerely, Senator Mike Lee, Congressman Andy Biggs, Congressman Mike Johnson, Brent Bozell, founder and president, Media Research Center, Adam Brandon, President, FreedomWorks, Bill Walton, President, Council for National Policy, Marjorie Dannenfelser, President, Susan B. Anthony List, David McIntosh, President, Club for Growth PAC, Matt Schlapp, Chairman, American Conservative Union, Jenny Beth Martin, Chairman, Tea Party Patriots Citizens Fund, David Bozell, President, For America, Tom Fitton, President, Judicial Watch, Seymour Fine, MD, MRC, Board of Directors. January 7th, right after that text. We're sending this as a private communication from us to him through you. We are not issuing it as a press release. That same night, use it however you deem appropriate. And if it is helpful to you for you to leak it, feel free to do so. November 7th, busy day for Mike. I think we need a small tote, little snort of our Irish whiskey. I love the spots. And people who know Irish whiskey will know what I'm talking about when I say I love the spots. November 7th, Sidney Powell is saying that she needs to get in to see the president, but she's being kept away from him. Apparently, she has a strategy to keep things alive and put several states back in play. Can you help her get in? November 7th, that same night, right after. It was at the president's request that Sidney has been working on a strategy and has been trying to get in to see him, but she's being kept out. And just to make sure people know, he sends Sidney's email and phone number to Mark Meadows. November 9th, 2 days later, we had a steering executive meeting at CPI tonight. As an aside, CPI means the Conservative Partnership Institute. Look it up. With Sidney Powell as our guest speaker. My purpose in having the meeting was to socialize with Republican senators the fact that POTUS needs to pursue his legal remedies. You have in us a group of ready and loyal advocates who will go to bat for him. But I fear this could prove short-lived unless you hire the right legal team and set them loose immediately.
Release the Kraken!
The last one for the night, November 9th. These are just a few of the many I'm going to read. Sidney told us that the campaign lawyers, who I do not know, are not focused on this and are obstructing progress. I have no way of verifying or refuting that on my own, but I found her to be a straight shooter. In any event, these actions need to be filed and announced in the next 48 hours, where the public relations momentum we need to have behind it will start to dissipate. You can see already where this is going. Mike Lee believes Sidney Powell is a straight shooter, set up meetings at the Conservative Partnership Institute, and loved his private messages of support signed by the furthest right of people in the GOP, including the current Speaker, Mike Johnson. This is just the beginning. Hope again that you're sipping your favorite adult beverage by the fire, you're in your favorite robe, you're wearing your slippers, and you're thinking about how we save democracy.
Mighty peculiar.
My man, I don't know why it just feels so special today to be here with you on our Mighty Peculiar show, because I've heard some rumblings. I've heard some whisperings about some of the things that you have planned for us today. And I have to say, I'm pretty excited about it on this incredible episode of Mighty Peculiar, episode 2 of season 2.
Yeah, we've got some great things going. And you know what? I've got a question for you, Denver, right off the bat.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready to be a dream warrior?
I
love your silence, but before we get to that, we got some business to do because I forgot to do this last week because I was out of practice. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the episode, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. If you're just listening to this on one of the varying podcast platforms, rate it, write a review, especially write a review. We've got some great ones on Apple Podcasts that I love seeing because that's the way I get the podcast. So it's great to see the written reviews. Shout out to the person who actually referenced my threats to the audience in the written review. That was wonderful to see. And here's the thing, because it's this time of the show, if you don't do those things, we're going to send John Brinkley to your house. And that's going to make sense if you pay attention to the rest of the episode.
Matt, you would be great in the mafia with your threats and your implied violence towards our listeners. It's wonderful. It's great. It's just
what? It's implied violence or medical benefit, depending on your frame of reference.
I was thinking of when you asked about Dream Warrior. I'm sorry about my stunned silence because I was just this morning, and it is a coincidence. I'm not saying I hope a lot of people, the Lunesto Mafia, Doug always has the best things. I have to say this. I was just thinking this morning's coincidence because people do know we prepare for the show, but not that much. I'm kidding. We prepare a lot. It's incredible. But I think the best dream sequences of any show of all time was The Sopranos, Matt. And that's why I referenced the Mafia too, but you really would be good in the Mafia. I mean, you're a very violent man underneath that beautiful, calm exterior. But
that's the magic right there, right?
That is the magic.
Unexpected.
It's unexpected. It's like you showing up at the door, like, oh, Matt's here, and then you pull out a 45 and say, give me your milk money. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I love it.
No, I'm definitely like, smuggling like a shiv in a jar of mayo or applesauce or something. You're not going to see it coming, but I'm going to come looking like I'm bringing something useful. And then you're going to be like, why is he just reaching? No, that's not going to be good. But anyways.
What is that? You're a prom? And she goes, oh, do you have something in your pocket? You're glad to see me. And Matt goes, I'm smuggling a shiv.
I'm smuggling a shiv. And how many prom jokes do you have?
Oh my God. I have.
You have a lot. It seems like.
Prom is my favorite.
How was
thing to
your
joke.
prom night, Denver? Do we need to devote an episode, a Mighty Peculiar prom special?
Well, I went to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I went to 8 proms. So I was 0, Matt.
0. I couldn't get a date.
That's such a surprise. Whenever somebody asks me about being a dream warrior, I think about a Stephen King book. Oh God, I just lost it. It's just like a fart in the wind.
Dreamcatcher?
Dreamcatcher.
Don't think about that one.
Yeah, which was one of the dumbest novels I think I've ever read. And so,
what's wrong with poop monsters?
Oh my God. I thought that Dreamcatcher, and I also, the book that I really didn't like, which I think some people did, was Tommyknockers, which I thought was not a good Stephen King book. I thought it was ludicrous.
I think a man's killed by a vending machine in that
book. Well, a lot of people have been, based on their cholesterol scores.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Dream Warrior. How do I feel about being a Dream Warrior? I think I don't know how I feel about it, Matt. So please illuminate.
Well, you could be a dream warrior or never dream again. It doesn't matter. Just listen to Dawkins, and you'll get all the answers to all of your questions.
Jesus, a Dawkins pull. I love this already. This is the best show of all time already, I think.
And we're going to talk about the Hat Man. And no, despite the Dawkins reference, and which is also then a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, the Dream Warriors reference, and Freddy Krueger does wear a hat. We're not talking about that Hat Man with dreams. Although we probably kind of are, because I guarantee that's exactly where this all came from. Is a lot of people saw Nightmare on Elm Street and were like, oh, a guy with a hat.
I missed that whole thing with Dream Warrior. I'm so sorry, Matt. You set me up to get it out of the park, and it was a baseball pitch, and I was playing football. I apologize.
No,
man.
But it was also a little verbal trick, because it's the Dream Warriors. I was asking you singular, and that really does kind of take the context out, really, because you need that.
Thanks for covering for me, Matt.
Hey,
it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
So let me ask you now a serious question. Are you familiar with the concept of sleep paralysis?
I am. I covered that many times in interviews I did earlier in my Bigfoot expedition and study of myth and odd disinformation and religious belief systems of Bigfoot believers. But I am familiar with sleep paralysis.
And is it something that, without getting too personal, that you've experienced yourself, or is it just a phenomena that you are aware of?
Looking back, I've experienced sleep paralysis. If you think about, I think I was 9 years old. I actually thought there were nights in a row where a hairy arm, some other interdimensional hairy arm, was coming out beneath the bottom bunk of the bunk bed. My younger brother was in the top bunk, and I actually did, pretty much do an official report to my parents that I was being attacked by some kind of hairy arms that were grabbing my ankles. And I also did have the old lady come out of my closet a couple times at our new house, which, as we know, that's pretty common for a lot of people. I think, looking back, those were certainly times of sleep paralysis. I wouldn't think that I had some kind of interdimensional or supernatural act happen to me between the ages of 8 and 11.
So just a quick aside, now that I was thinking about this. So you said the hairy arm thing, which obviously could be a Bigfoot type situation.
It could.
Was this post what gives the name of our show, Your Mighty Peculiar Experience with your grandfather?
Pre and post. And actually it happened with more regularity after 1980 when it happened, which really was bothersome to me. And think about it's incredible. When we talk about memeing things, I actually have personal experience with it, not only with my grandfather and when he told me that he saw something mighty peculiar in the woods, and I put that in my book, Bigfoot, It's Complicated. But also it just seemed that after that, I had more experiences always at night, never during the day. And always when I felt like I'd just gone to sleep or I'd just woken up, and then it's hazy. Yeah. But it's also very specific. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. But yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question, Matt.
And I'll say the same thing really quick, is I've experienced sleep paralysis, which, to define it quickly, it is you mentally are mostly awake, but your body is essentially paralyzed, right? So what's happening is your sleep cycle has been interrupted or disturbed in a way that is unusual. So instead of the normal waking up process, which is what they call coming out of the hypnagogic sleep, so you've been deep asleep and you are in the process of waking up, essentially your body and mind are not waking up at the same time the way they should. So you feel your eyes are open, you feel like you are completely aware of your surroundings, and in some respects you are, because you can see the room you are in, you can feel the weight of your arms and that they won't lift, or the fact that you cannot get up, you can't speak, right? Because most of these things are, and I've learned this, is what differentiates us from dogs, which is funny. Dogs move a lot more in their sleep because they lack the chemical in their brain that we have that basically prevents us from hurting ourselves in our sleep. Why we don't often thrash about during all our dreams is because we essentially self-paralyze to, again, to limited degrees, but that's an evolutionary protection that we've got.
It explains so much too. I mean, my goodness, man, I hate to interject here, but I was thinking about, you talked about the Bigfoot studies that I did and why I sort of linked that to, religious belief systems gone bad. It's like cops gone bad or girls gone bad or something. But
Bigfoot's gone wild. Look,
well,
guys, subscribe to our Patreon. We're gonna create a new tier. It's the Bigfoot's Gone Wild. Like, you will not believe the videos you see.
Prepare to see sexy in its natural habitat. It's Bigfoot's Gone Wild.
Woo!
Oh my goodness! And now that we have Bigfoot's Gone Wild,
his head.
Yeah, he is shaking his head. But does it not explain about every single alien abduction story you've heard?
I must be awake. Is that what you mean?
And I was thinking about in my book and the reason I said that is I had a former a former Marine lieutenant colonel who said Bigfoot would float over him and actually telepathically not only give him predictions of his future or prophecy, but also what's happening to his friends around him and family, dangerous situations that he needed to intervene in, which is why he had to wipe my house of spirits using Bigfoot as a spiritual guide. And this is not a false story. So when you're talking about these things, it really strikes me that I absolutely know that sleep paralysis or fantasies or dreams seem to make up, I would say, every single alien abduction and floating Bigfoot in your room.
Okay, you actually hit upon something there that I think is particularly interesting. Just, we're talking about sleep paralysis in general, and we teased that, like, we're going to talk about something called the Hat Man. So let's just talk about the general stuff first, right? So we've described kind of what it is. You are awake, but you are still your mind is still kind of dreaming. So that's where these images, these visions of things come from. So culturally, this is where things like the incubus or the succubus, the idea of something perched on your chest, could come from. Commonly the old crone or the old woman, the old hag.
I refer to the old crone. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Oftentimes these things are seen just like at the foot of your bed or hovering over you. Sometimes they can be like actually physically on your chest. And that's because your whole body feels heavy. So there's a sensation there. There's a pressure there, and your mind is interpreting, well, why is that pressure there? There must be something on me, right? Now, when you mentioned the alien abductions thing, this I found incredibly fascinating is you realize how culturally specific what people see is, because when you look at, like, the people have created like a map of what individuals during sleep paralysis see worldwide, and all of them fit very much to either deep roots in their culture, that, again, the old hag, stuff like that comes. The US just shines as 100%. We see all of the aliens, the grays, everything like that, because USA loves some flying saucers. Like, the rest of the world, that does not even factor in.
There's not a lot of Nepalese, having a mass reporting sighting database of UFOs. I don't know why I use the Nepalese, maybe because the mountains are high, or Yeti. But, there you go. I just meme myself into some kind of, familiarization with Bigfoots and Yetis and Yarans and Almasties and Umas and Stickman and all that kind of stuff. And I just made a Nepalese reference based on my references of studying, large simian-like beasts that don't exist.
So the thing about sleep paralysis and the cultural ties, the fact that, like, what each individual that's experiencing it sees depends on their culture. One of the things about that is it's fungible, right? It can change. As cultures change, we see new things. Now, it changes pretty slowly overall, but we have, in our lifetimes, we are lucky enough to have seen a change by the introduction of someone called the Hat Man. For the audio only listeners, please, this will be a visual moment. So I want to talk about the Hat Man as someone that you see at the end of your bed.
You do now know, if people watch this, that's going to be the Hat Man that they see at the end of their bed now.
That's what I'm hoping for.
You memed that into existence, Matt.
That is my hope. My hope is that when you see the Hat Man, it's big floppy hat, big floppy, like. Thus endeth the visual gag. Okay, so no, that I'm glad you asked that. The Hat Man that is seen, it's basically the pilgrim hat, the straight brimmed like around. It's almost fedora like. Basically, think scary movie hat, and you've got it right.
Almost like the Freddy Krueger hat you were talking about at the beginning, correct?
It's amazing how often that's going to kind of come back up, right?
Yeah, I got you.
And to be clear, the Hat Man has 0 features. He's basically pure silhouette, all black. No one can see his face. It is just a black shadow outline with the straight brim hat, right?
Right.
Largely stands at the foot of your bed, does not interact with you whatsoever.
Do you guys hear that?
Is it 1, 2?
Hold on,
Ready?
once. The TV just turned on loud, I think by itself. I think the Hat Man just turned on the TV. Actually, let me go. This is the weird. I don't know what's happening. So let me.
Oh wait, that wasn't a bit.
No, Do you hear the music? Am I ridiculous?
I
do. Yeah.
It almost sounded like the 1, 2. Freddy's coming for.
Hold on a minute.
You.
Let me see if I can dialogue over this. You know, it's been a long time. The first time I saw the Hat Man, I was young. I remember I was only wearing my underwear. The lights were coming in through the window because I lived on a busy street. Sometimes I would hear a cat yell, or I'd hear a dog bark in the distance. And all those times I wondered, as the Hat Man was there, why did he look like my weird uncle? And I'm thinking, as the rain was pattering on the roof, not a tin roof, mind you, but just a regular shingled roof, shingles that need to be replaced. And I could hear the water dripping down through the gaps in the shingles, coming through the plywood, and one drop landed on my head. I remember going, holy shit, I didn't eat dinner. Thank you. So what I got to do, though, is I got to go check why this music is randomly playing in my house. I swear to you guys, I don't know what happened here. And Doug, I hope you keep some of this, because I'm wondering what the hell's going on in my house.
Yeah, no, that whole part is staying. That was amazing.
Yeah, there's no way that goes.
Go correct it, though.
Let me correct it.
Okay. He killed Enya. Good.
Yeah. So my mother-in-law decided we had built her a little, we call it Nana's Cabana next to us. So she decided to come over and play meditative cat videos. I'm not quite, I don't know.
It turns out that like this is all a front, and Denver totally runs like a Reiki studio out of his house. Like
I didn't know what was happening, and I still don't. But we're okay now.
You know what? This is all adding to the dreamlike atmosphere to what we're talking about. Because so now we're at the point where people might be asking, why are we talking about just something people see like when they sleep, right? Like, what, we get it. Like, this is a common thing. And here on The Mighty Peculiar, we often talk about when fantasy propels people to real world action, right?
Right.
And how that's largely negative. That very rarely does that seem to like, how about this? Like, you may read a Superman comic and then want to help an old lady cross the street. That never makes the news. What tends to make the news is when people think that like
they can fly,
or that Democrats are demons, and then they need to like storm some capitals, or whatever, right?
There's a lot of sleep paralysis going on with those cats.
Yeah, Honestly, probably, because what we now need to talk about is the Benadryl Hat Man.
Okay, so Hat Man, an instantiation of your fears and the meaning of society based on Freddy Krueger and others who wear that specific type of hat.
Yeah.
Sort of a cross between Freddy Krueger and Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know, are you telling me that there's a drug-induced Hat Man also based on the fact that maybe Benadryl can induce sleep paralysis? Or I'm very curious about this, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, so there's something in Benadryl, DHP, and the actual word is one that, again, I'm going to say this again, my Illinois tongue cannot pronounce. I practice and practice and practice, and I mainly sounded like I said diphtheria, and that's not what it is. So
DHP?
Yes.
Okay. Is it like dihedral hexagamic polymorphols?
Dihiptamine?
I don't know. I just made that up. I just completely made that up. It's called dihiptamine. Diptamine.
Your guess is as good as mine in terms of the actual pronunciation. But let's use the cool Reddit slang, because there is a subreddit called I Love DHP.
Oh my goodness.
And within this, there are people that intentionally take an excessive amount of Benadryl, the just over-the-counter antihistamine allergy medicine, right? Because it makes them hallucinate. You know, essentially, it's a sedative that's got some other properties that, like, when taken in excess, makes people more or less hallucinate, trip, or, you know, stops their heart, ceases them from breathing, you know, cool things, right? That, like, people love to do. In that subreddit that is just extolling the virtues of overdosing on Benadryl for fun, someone said, I am going to take too much DHP and go fight the Hat Man. That
don't tell me this became a thing.
Started a whole thing, and you better believe the TikToks, the Instagrams, all the things that I'm too old and afraid to go on to is all about purposefully taking a drug in order to either fight, hang out with, in some cases have sex with, the Hat Man.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Goodness gracious. I mean, it's just like Tide Pods on steroids. You know, it's unbelievable. But it's not unbelievable, is it? I mean, people
no, it's not unbelievable.
It's not. I mean, people chasing a high or chasing something through chemicals, right, based on a belief system, or maybe just as a lark. The thing is, people putting their lives in danger for fantasy seems to be a theme.
Yes.
Especially lately. I mean, I know that's happened throughout history. And listen, we can have the religious discussion at another time, right? Which I'm almost tentative in wanting to actually address when it comes to giving up your life for fantasy. Ooh, let's leave that there. And, you know, and I also, let's leave some of the UFO UAP stuff there too, because I want to get into that more because we've been doing that. But I find it interesting. You guys know I'm a little bit aggressive about David Grush, and I'm a little bit aggressive about these UFO UAP grifters. And the fact that I even hate the word UAP, it just tries to make UFOs sound a little bit more scientifically feasible.
Right.
It tries to it's trying to gently introduce aliens to our brunches on Sundays. You know, that's why they changed it to UAPs. But it does seem like with the advent of social media, I want to say this really quickly. Somebody said everything in history always repeats. There's nothing new under the sun. And I'm like, well, you obviously haven't done analysis or looked at the way that social media can radicalize, which is something we've never seen, or the way that social media can influence, which has never been seen in the history of the United States. The reason it's called, things actually do happen that are new there, historians and other individuals. That's part of life. I hate to say it. You can't just wish it away. But it is interesting to me that it seems like with the Hat Man, it's sort of like the Slender Man too, isn't it, Matt? I mean,
they came up about the same time, and that's the other thing is you can see how one feeds the other again, right?
Yes, you can, and I guess it's all of this is what we're fighting here on this show, and I don't want to get all serious already because this freaking story is so insane.
Well, we're at the serious part of the story,
but Benadryl, using drugs to chase a fantasy figure.
Right.
To me is like, microdosing to see Jesus.
Um, hey, Doug, mighty peculiar bumper sticker idea. Microdosing to see Jesus.
Ooh, oh, by the way, as we're talking about Benadryl, we do not think that anybody should actually do that on this show. So I would just strongly suggest we're talking about what people do. We're not suggesting anybody does this.
Yeah, I'm hoping that should go without saying, but that's a great thing. Is
I'm not going to be
we're
dropping.
not condoning any of this, and
No.
actually saying actively
Don't do
the
this.
opposite. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do
And
it.
especially for our younger viewers or listeners, I'm sure you're out there, because this particular dangerous based on fantasy kind of action is targeted at them, right? This is a high school, this is a teenage trend, right? Because you're under 21. Like, I mean, when I was in high school and before they changed the ingredients to like Robitussin, everyone was talking about robo tripping. That was the thing. You drank too much of the Robitussin liquid cough syrup and basically sat around and watched movies and listened to Pink Floyd. Like, literally, like, that was what I knew people that did. Like,
I had my own phase. I was Mormon as a teenager, right? So I would go to church, fornicate, and eat way too much at Golden Corral. That was a really rough time in my life.
I mean, there's never a good sign when too much Golden Corral is in your diet. Like,
when you have medium rare steak and fried okra every day, you might as well just stab yourself in the eye, because you're going down a path you can't recover from.
Medium rare steak that has been sitting under a warming light for hours.
What could possibly go wrong?
Overnight,
I mean,
yeah.
possibly
you're
overnight.
You're going to be seeing some things.
Listen, they talk about the people of
things.
Walmart, which I think is sad. There's just people, I go to Walmart, and take pictures. But I mean, but also, there's the people of Golden Corral. And I think that we need to be sensitive, to those individuals, especially with the large pastels or the things that they wear, on that Dennis on the clock.
Yeah, we got a whole game show to get to.
Yeah, all right, let's go.
Okay, so when I looked at this thing, the idea that this is a purely fantasy driven thing, maybe people are really seeing this figure because, again, you can really see figures. They're just dreams that, like, you're just partially awake for. And of course, this is in society, people are talking about it, which is going to make people more likely than to see it, right? Like, as you say, they're memeing it into reality, like reality within the confines that there's no such real being as the Hat Man, but people are going to be seeing them, because much like how you might dream about something that you then had read an article about earlier in the day or had a conversation about, right? So, but the problem is, the more that people talk about it and claim to be engaging with it, the more people then see it and think they're having experiences with it, which then comes the inevitable. Now they want to take some kind of action. And then this action that they take could be deadly to them. Again, we're talking about mostly teenagers, young, a younger crowd here. I don't know that there's many people of the storm the Capitol age that are overdosing on Benadryl to, go roll the Hat Man, but maybe I could be wrong. But is being susceptible to this stuff at a younger age and acting upon fantasy any kind of indication of what they may continue to do as they get older?
Matt, are you trying to get me in trouble, man? Because my answers are brutal.
No, that's what I want. Because that's the thing is, like, because there's always the concern. I mean, I know the term gateway drug is not what they say, but like, there are, I think, there's gateway thoughts.
I think there's gateway
yourself up to one.
Yeah, I think there's gateway fantasies that lead to susceptibility later on in life. And I always have to go back to my religious roots, is that if you believe, like when I was taught to pray, that God was talking directly to you, you have and just to let everybody know, in the LDS church, when you pray, you can get your own personal prophecy, but that prophecy could apply, right, to a wide swath, or could apply to your family or what you need to do in your future. So you have a direct line to God. So when you guys hear me say, I'm always dubious of people with a direct line to the supernatural, that's because I was taught that I had one. And I wonder, if you're already susceptible at that young age, I think we see an epidemic of conspiracy theorists, fantasists, of individuals who believe they're in their own movie, which I know you guys have heard me
Yeah.
say that before. So I would say, Matt, to your question, yes, I think at a young age you can identify those who are susceptible. If I had a child who was taking Benadryl to chase the Hat Man, that is not a laughing matter. For
Right.
me, listen, I had 3 daughters. You guys, I went through challenges, right? And these are kids who I thought, were raised incredible. And they're incredible. But there definitely were challenges. And those challenges is where do you stop from them chasing something that is unrealistic? And that can happen in many forms. If for instance, if I did not somehow separate myself, and I want to ask you this, Matt, if I didn't, and Doug is listening too, and I know, what would happen where would I be? Would I be better off if I didn't separate myself from those belief systems? Or did it allow me, based on my military experience traveling around the world, the multiple operations and wars I was in, starting companies, dealing with diversity, dealing with people that just stunned me with their intelligence and where they came from and the way they pulled themselves up. If I didn't have those experiences, would I have been one of those people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th? I'd humbly submit that I could have been. If it was me at 19 or 18 with my belief system, I'd have been firmly behind the people on January 6th. There is no doubt in my mind. And that scares the hell out of me. And it's that fear that drives me to do the things that I do now, which is to write The Breach, write Bigfoot, It's Complicated, do these shows, to do The Mighty Peculiar. You guys have sort of saved me in a way. And I know people like, Denver, why are you doing The Mighty Peculiar? We've had this discussion.
Yeah.
I think it's because I have to highlight, and you guys have helped me so much, I have to highlight how fantasy, myth, conspiracy theories, and sort of, I would say, program belief systems affect those people later in life to do things where they have no ability to discern between reality and fantasy. And that, to me, is the biggest danger of the United States today. It's not China, it's not Russia, it's not Iran, it's not North Korea, it's not Shia militia groups, right? It's not, I would say, domestic terrorism based on fantasy, whether it's fascism, white supremacy. Fascism is not a fantasy. Fascism is a way of thinking that's absolutely ridiculous, and we go into fascism another day. But the belief in fantasy, all those conspiracy theories from January 6th, if you think about the Mike Lee text I read at the beginning, all this stuff comes in as that fantasy and belief. If you think you have a direct link to the supernatural, or you can chase the supernatural using any type of substance, I think you're susceptible at a later age to violence based on those fantastical beliefs.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And Doug, why don't you hop in now? We'll wrap this up by, the only thing I would add to that is, and is just to say that, like, I feel like, especially with, I have kids of the age where, like, things like all the social media trends are like front of mind to them. They see them before I'm aware of them. I've come to start thinking like that. I'm looking for, like, basically like them being radicalized by a mental algorithm, right? Like, to see that, like, everything they're being fed is changing their thought process. And while thankfully I've not seen that happen yet, like, that is the thing that I'm on high alert for Denver. For you mentioned your daughters, like, thankfully that this period of thing is behind you. You got them to be responsible adults. And, Doug and I are both, have young kids where we're like, that's a very real thing that we have to navigate, which is, how do you protect them from that, but also strengthen them so that they know how to recognize it, right? Like, how to recognize the dangerous or the idiocy. So,
well, this is an amazing show. I mean, seriously. But before we get to you have a game show coming up.
I do.
I know this is a great topic, but I got to keep you guys on point because Den is on the clock.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I am on the clock, but I want to say this. When we were kids, Matt, Doug, maybe it was some kind of natural selection because nobody, I played sports. I did a lot of things like that, and I was being raised the way I was, but I was sort of always dubious. And I wonder why me and not my other 7 siblings. Think about that. And why me? I don't know. I mean, how lucky am I to have met my wife and where I'm at today? But I don't remember us forcefully having any discussion with my parents about fantasy, drug use. I don't know about you guys. I never had those discussions with my parents. It was never a thing.
Right.
everything. I mean, can you imagine a Mormon household, my mom or stepdad sitting me down and telling me about sex? That ain't happening, right? Now,
They didn't even know it existed.
Now, my real dad, I stumbled on him, in weird situations. God, I almost said something, dude. The things I've seen, I knew at a young age, right, that sex was a thing.
Back out of that one.
Yeah, back out. Yeah, moonwalk out of that. Probably shouldn't use a Michael Jackson reference either. But I think that, I don't know. I worry about your guys.
Like buckshot. It's like buckshot when you
just
talk.
can't.
It's just, you don't know where it's gonna hit. You can aim, but
Yeah.
you're gonna get in the neighborhood of something.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
what I wanted to tell you guys is I overwhelmed my children with activities, which was sports, after school activities, academic pursuits. And I am not saying this to be a joke, Doug and Matt, but if somebody were to ask me, like, what do I do to keep my kid out of trouble? Overwhelm them with activities and
That's great advice.
right.
Yeah.
And also a complete sort of, don't be a helicopter parent. I think I was that a little bit at times. And I can tell you guys, because I hated what I was and the things that I didn't have as a kid. And I thought, you better do well because I'm giving you this. That's an awful place to be. But I was also military and very driven at the time, learned a lot. But I think being completely involved in every aspect of your kid's life and loving them based on their activities, but also, and I know you guys are gonna be like, oh my God, I always also, if my kids screwed up, I did make them feel shame. And the thing that I told them, which I would always change, but it also drove them, as I said, hey, if you're below average IQ, you better try harder than other people. And I said it as a joke so many times, but they sort of internalize that sometimes.
No.
So, but it's those kind of things that, I made mistakes, but I wanted to overwhelm my kids with activities. I did not want them to become sort of caught up, because the drug culture, was pretty interesting in Virginia and Pennsylvania at the time, and still is. So anyway, that's it. I'm on the clock. I know, Doug. So
Yes. So that was wonderful. Before you get to your game show, really quickly, we have to talk about the Patreon for a second, because we have big plans. Okay, really quick, on our merch page, we have available the Fabrizio Cosmic Italian Pancake T-shirt is from last week's episode, is available for a limited time for 25% off. And the link will be down below in the description. And because our team at Mighty Peculiar is so amazing, we already have the Microdosing for Jesus T-shirt, mug,
wow,
and baseball cap available on the site. Again, the link will be below in the description. But we are planning a lot of things for Patreon, and they're actually address things that we get from the audience all the time.
Yes.
For example, the question we get asked most, and it's really important in 2024, is what can we do? What can we do to combat a lot of the stuff that we talk about? And just real quick, because again, Denver's on the clock, I would follow people like Anarchy Princess or Nandini Jammy is a big one. Figuring out who's advertising for these people who are outrage machines, right? And do something about it. So on Mighty Peculiar, on our Patreon, we're planning this for March. We are throwing what we are called, we're just going to be honest, a doxing party. And we're inviting all of you. There will probably be a DJ. We're going to be getting some performances in as we go. But there'll be more details on this later. He's laughing. I'm not laughing. I'm very serious. Doxing party is happening in March. So with that being said, go ahead, Maddie.
Don't forget, right now on our Patreon, if you subscribe, you can listen to our first Patreon exclusive podcast where we talk in depth about the movie Cobra, not just about the movie itself, but also how it relates to our Satanic Panic episodes and other things like that. So it's a lot of fun, but it also does continue some of the discussions that we have on the main show over there. So
listen, where do you get the sentence R2D2 special cousins? Anywhere but here.
Yeah.
At the Mighty Peculiar.
Nowhere. I mean, nowhere.
I mean,
okay. So now on to what I'm currently, and this is there's an evolution happening here because I haven't figured out exactly what this is called, but I'm calling this no scammies, no scammies, no scammies after my favorite game show, Press Your Luck. All right. So the theme here is basically questions about scams that were pulled over an unsuspecting public. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
So let's see here. Let's start with Denver.
Okay.
Okay. Frank Abagnale who was from Catch Me If You Can, that was what the movie's based on, managed to escape prison by A, switching clothes with a guard, B, claiming to be an undercover prison inspector, C, saying he got lost when visiting a friend and was never a prisoner to begin with.
C.
No, it's B. He convinced everyone that he was an undercover prison inspector and was just there to check on, make sure everyone was okay, and they let him walk out the front door.
That's brilliant. Brilliant.
No, Matt's a master at the multiple choice. Like it.
Yes, it's wonderful. Okay.
All right, Doug. And hey, listeners who don't write us a review or rate us, this is what you can expect to happen. John Brinkley claimed he could successfully treat impotence by A, castrating impotent men, because that's the source of the problem, B, implanting goat testicles into men, C, selling an air pump with a needle to be placed inside the urethra.
I'm going to go with C.
No, it's B. He implanted goat testicles into men.
Oh my God, he did?
How did he do that? Like
there's a great book called Charlatan all about this, and this guy made so much money. The men could pick out the goat. They see a particularly active male goat, and he'd be like, okay, and he would take.
Do you know what? This is amazing. You know what I would do at prom? I would go up. I'd like say, "Hey, baby, I'm the goat." She goes, "Oh, the greatest of all time." I'm like, "No, goat testicles."
Yeah,
So I would do that.
That'd go over really big, like by the punch bowl.
No,
and then it'd also be.
No.
Well, you know what? The tip off would have been when he was like sitting at the prom dinner and he just ordered a tin can.
Doug just said that would go over really big, and Matt, you just said that would be the tip off. I feel like there's a lot of puns here.
There might be.
That was very good.
If we had
Matt,
more time,
good,
we
Doug.
would make them.
Yes, we would. Yes,
okay.
I mean, that's fantastic.
I've been spending too much time with you two. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, Denver.
Yes.
L.W. Wright became infamous for A, posing as the driver of monster truck Bigfoot and running over numerous cars, B, posing as a NASCAR driver and participating in the Winston 500, C, claiming to have built the perfect race car, selling 5 of them, even though they didn't exist.
Man, those are 3 fantastic things, man. A.
No, it was B. He posed as a NASCAR driver,
I was
claimed to
close,
be sponsored by Merle Haggard, got in the Winston 500, crashed after 2 laps, disappeared, being then known as the DB Cooper of NASCAR. He only surfaced a couple years ago on a podcast.
I feel like if you get one like Maddie Peculiar question correct, like you earned it, right?
You
like
earned
that,
it.
Yeah, because he's like a shell game.
It is.
He does
It's a
it like
show game.
Mhm.
It feels like me taking the SATs the first time.
He'll give you like too much detail in one, and like the way, it's a magic.
That's well done.
There is probably a rhyme or reason towards like how I construct these, but okay.
Wow,
Doug.
Yeah.
Apparently, you're getting the medical questions. This was not intentional. This was just the order in which the cards were shuffled.
Right. Dr. Dumb is ready.
With completely fraudulent medical credentials. Cecil Hammond, which is also a fake name, A, secured a position as a top health official in Boston during the 1918 Great Influenza pandemic. B, did a complete physical on Vice President Spiro Agnew. Or C, successfully amputated a leg during the Korean War while serving in the Canadian Navy.
I'm going to go with B only because I love saying Spiro Agnew.
Okay, you're wrong. It's C. He successfully amputated a leg of a Korean refugee while serving he's an American, served as a Canadian naval doctor. Completely fraudulent. He used a textbook. It was successful.
Was it the correct leg?
Yeah.
Actually, I heard that the story went on a little further, guys. If you'd like to hear it, is that it actually was the wrong leg, and he had to actually cut off the other leg. And sadly, when the Korean went to sue, he didn't have a leg to stand on.
Insert the rim shot sound effect, please. Thank you. Okay, Denver.
No, Doug. No.
Oh, actually, wait.
It was one of the better ones. I don't know why I'm nodding. It's one of your better ones.
Damn.
Actually,
low expectations.
All right, Denver.
Yes.
Why would seeing the British band The Zombies live in 1969 be considered a ripoff? Is it A, none of them knew how to play their instruments, so just the record was played over the loudspeakers? B, they refused to play music and instead performed exclusively spoken word? Or C, the band was 4 guys from Texas claiming to be the 5-piece British band.
A.
No, it's C. The band was 4 guys from Texas claiming to be the 5-piece British band. And just as a little tease, Doug and I, and Denver, if you're available, will be recording a Patreon exclusive podcast all about how four guys from Texas pretended to be the 5-piece British band because the Zombies had already broken up by the time their song hit. And
I was born in 1970.
Well,
It's the singer of Simp Biscuit.
Damn.
all right. Wow, we're wrapping this up. Okay, last question, and kind of my personal favorite, actually. Doug,
Yes.
Wichita Falls, Texas is not so proud that it is the home of A, the world's littlest skyscraper, B, the world's biggest unwound ball of yarn, C, the world's widest alleyway.
I'm gonna go alleyway.
Oh, you guys are nothing. It's A, the world's littlest skyscraper. It stands 40 feet tall. It's basically a normal office building. A guy.
What considers it a skyscraper?
Because that's what they paid for. A guy
Hey,
presented the plans, and you know how you say inches or feet with like either quotes or like the single apostrophe. Well, he intentionally switched it so it was only inches that it measured it and not feet, but everyone took it as feet. He got all the money. He built a 2-story office building and then vanished with the rest of the money that would be to build a skyscraper. So it stands as 40 feet tall, currently still standing in Wichita Falls, Texas, the littlest skyscraper.
I don't think there's ever been a quiz game where we got 0 right, Doug.
Yeah, we're 0 for 1 in season 2 so far.
Wow, these were great questions, Matt.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I feel like I should do a Bigfoot trivia one time, right?
You should.
In your Bigfoot suit.
Oh, I have $1,000 Bigfoot suit.
No, I know. You did it for the cover of your book.
Oh my goodness. That we could
That
have
book,
Bigfoot.
by the way, is called Bigfoot It's Complicated, and it's on sale now. Also available on Audible.
It is. And I actually put Bigfoot sounds in it, Doug. It has screeching and howls and running water when
I've heard it. Yeah, I've heard it.
Doug's like, can we move on?
So that was no scammies, no scammies, no
I love
scammies,
it. I love it.
If by the results of it, these 2 guys would have been scammed like left and right, which is great.
But I won the game. I won the game of keeping Denver on the clock. So
That's true.
You did. This
We
was a
are
wonderful-
wrapping this up just.
Yep.
I have to tell you guys, every show we say it though, but what a cool show.
yeah.
I mean, anytime you get in the comments, who the F is playing Enya, I think we've actually transcended the show at that point.
We went from Mike Lee to the Hat Man and tripping on Benadryl to talking about the world's littlest skyscraper in 1 hour.
My wife calls me the world's littlest skyscraper.
And on that note, Doug,
Thank you very much for joining us on the Mighty Peculiar, and we'll see you next week.
stay peculiar.
You said it.
Odd, strange, odd, strange. Mighty, peculiar.
Oh no, not the probe. Are you tired of getting probed? Just because you have a bad credit score? Don't let bankruptcy, bad credit, or repossession keep you from getting the car you need. Our lender doesn't care about your credit score, just your ability to pay. Call this number today. I'll guarantee a car for you